So our neighbor came to us today with two issues that he needed to deal with. The first one being the ride quality. So with his standard pin box, he had absolutely zero cushioning, and with that, he's going to be getting a lot of chucking and road vibration that travels through that pin box down into his fifth wheel hitch and right through the body of his truck. So then he's going to be feeling that when he's out on the road, coming to a stop, starting to take off. He's going to be getting all of that vibration and chucking and just not having a really good ride quality. And on top of that, he is the second owner of this trailer, so the previous owner had a different height setting and he needed to adjust that pin box so his trailer would actually ride level. Now, if your trailer's not riding level, maybe it's a little bit too nose high or nose down, you can run into some issues. If it's too down, then we have a good chance of accidentally hitting our bed rails or damaging our tailgate. Along with that, if it's too high, then now we're going to also have some sway issues because we're not really riding level and we're putting too much weight on that back axle compared to the front axle. So now we're kind of throwing this around where really a fifth wheel trailer should be tracking right behind you with no issues. You shouldn't really have that much sway when it comes to it compared to a travel trailer where the connection point's down at the trailer hitch. So today we've swapped him over. He's not only switched over to the MORryde here, but we've also raised his pin box up a set so that way it's actually riding level. And we've also kind of worked on his suspension as well. We've swapped him over to a ComfortRide system so that way when he gets in here, he doesn't have to worry about it being a bad trip. He can enjoy the ride all the way to the campsite. Now, when choosing out the right pin box replacement here, there's a bunch of different bolt patterns that you can go by. 1621 was what we had, and that's pretty much the most common one used by most trailer manufacturers up until just recently where they started switching over to the Rhino. But MORryde's got you covered either way. What we're looking for here is if we didn't know that we had a 1621 or we didn't know we had a Rhino, all we'd have to do is look for this sticker that's on our mounting ears. You can see it has the serial number, the LCI item number, and then also the RPO number. These three numbers here will tell us exactly which pin box you have because it's going to give us the information on the trailer frame, and then we'll know exactly the capacity and also the bolt pattern. So that's going to be the big thing here to make sure that we're getting the correct fit so we can bolt right up and have this be a nice, easy installation. Installation of your pin box isn't really mentally challenging, it's just physically challenging because these are big hunks of metal. The previous one, so just that standard pin box, it's typically going to come on your trailer. Not super heavy, it's something where you and maybe one friend could probably pull it off and be fine. But once you go to put on the new one, this MORryde one we have here today, that one's going to be a lot heavier. And that's where you're probably going to need some equipment, whether that's an engine hoist, a forklift with a pallet like we used, or just a whole lot of friends to help you lift it up into place. So this can be a little bit daunting just from the sheer weight of it. So if you feel like you don't want to risk hurting yourself or you just don't have all the equipment or friends to get this all done in time before your trip, then please feel free to use our dealer locator. And you can enter in your zip code to find a shop near you and get it professionally installed. So taking a closer look at our pin box, there is a whole lot going on down here at the bottom at our skid plate. So we have front to back motion, and what that's going to do is help us with our chucking. So when you first start to take off, you're going to kind of feel the trailer push and pull back and forth on you because you're trying to build up that inertia to really get it moving. And right now it's sitting still, it doesn't really want to move. Or when you're coming up to those stops and maybe the trailer's moving a little bit quicker, the brakes really weren't giving you as much force as you needed to really slow down, and maybe your truck's slowing down a little bit quicker, that's when you really start feeling that kind of jarring back and front motion, and that is exactly what this is going to help dampen. So we have a rubber shear spring on the inside of this, and that is what's going to take up that motion, and that's where our GVWR of our trailer comes into play here because there's going to be three different options when it comes to this. So it's going to be for trailers up to 11.5 GVWR, and then from there it's going to go from 11.5 up to 14, and then 14 up. And with the gross towing weight capacity of 21,000, so we've got a big gap there. But the big thing here is making sure that when we go and we check the sticker on the side of our trailer, make sure that we are falling within that shear spring with our GVWR, because this specific one is for that 11.5 up to 14. So that's going to give us that optimal ride quality with that shear spring being the right capacity for the trailer's actual weight. Now on the inside here that you can kind of see, we have some glide pads. These are going to kind of skid back and forth on our skid plate here. And we're going to have up to 3 inches of forward to back movement and 1.5 inches of side to side movement. So it should really give us a much more comfortable ride quality when we are taking off or coming to a stop. Now the other thing inside of here, we have rubber dampeners on the front and back. Now when we meet that full 3 inches of travel, we're not going to be hitting metal on metal. We're going to have a dampener here, so that way it's going to take up that shock and absorb it here, so we're not feeling it inside of our tow vehicle. Now one other thing I recommend going along with that is going to be a lube plate, and that is just going to pop on. Might be a little bit of a fight getting it on initially, just because it does want to stick to the kingpin. And what this does is it creates separation between our skid plate and our fifth wheel hitch. Now our neighbor today has a companion, and companion is a super nice hitch. You don't really want to be glooping that up with a bunch of grease and getting it all dirty, and then when you're using your truck bed, you may accidentally rub up against it, and then you got all this dirty grease all over you. This is going to take that completely away. We don't need to use grease anymore. We just have this lube plate that'll help us slide right up onto our hitch, prevent that metal on metal contact, and prevent all that scratching that could end up causing you to have to replace your hitch head. Starting off our install, we're going to be removing our old pin box, and before you really take anything off, it's a good idea to just make sure that you have any wiring that could potentially get bound up once the pin box starts to drop out of the way. So typically that's going to be your breakaway switch and then also your 7-pole wiring. So I'm going to pull this right on out. And now sometimes there's mounts holding it where it's in the way. In this case, it's kind of out of the way. It's on our wing that we mount to, and pin box is pretty clear of it. So I'm not too worried about the 7-way at this point. But you might find on your specific trailer it could potentially be an issue, and you're going to have to remove it and then reinstall it once you have the new pin box in place. So with that, we'll now go ahead and start popping out some bolts. I'm going to take all but 2 out, and I think I'm going to leave the top one in at the back here. So I'm going to take the bottom one and then all 3 on either side in the front, and I'm going to be using a 24mm socket and wrench. That may differ just slightly depending on your specific trailer, but for the most part, that's been the most common size that I have found. Our neighbor is the second owner of this trailer, and the previous owner moved his pin box down so he could get a little bit more height between the nose of the trailer and the bed rails on his truck. Well, our new neighbor that has this now is not needing that. He has 8.5 inches between the nose and his truck bed rails, and really he only needs about 6 inches. So if we raise this back up to where it was at the factory, you can see how these are kind of rusted out and corroded a little bit. Yep, surface rust showing, but we don't have it down here. That's the original height setting. So raising it up will lower the trailer down closer to the bed rails. Dropping it down more is going to give you extra space. So what we're going to do is move this back up, so that way this is going to ride level with our neighbor's truck, and then he's not going to have the same issues he's been dealing with already. We have our pin box up on a pallet here. We've got Joe working the forklift to make this a whole lot easier of a transition for us here. You definitely need a few extra hands to help lift this up. This pin box is much heavier than your original just standard 1621 pin box. This one, closer to the upper 200s, 300-pound range. So you don't want to just be doing this yourself. We're obviously using this to make this a lot easier on us here, but we're going to have Joe push this in just a bit more. We're going to raise it up, and we're going to get some bolts started here. Picked up a kit from Gen Y, and that is going to be these bolts right here. These are 5/8 bolts, and it's going to come with 2 washers and a lock nut on there, a mechanical one. And what we're going to be doing is using this to replace our old worn out hardware. Now, in most cases, you can typically just reuse your hardware, but if you're really wanting to be safe, it is better to just replace it each time, just so that you never have any ifs or questions about the quality of your hardware. Now, what we're looking for is the grade, the thread size, and the actual sizing of the bolt. So this is a 5/8 bolt, and this is a grade 8 one. Keep going. Yep, right there. Tilt up a little bit. That should bring us right up. I'm just working my way back and forth using our pry bar, because right now the block of wood that we have to actually lift this up is getting blocked up by our mounting ears here. So I'm just gonna kind of go back and forth using my 2 pry bars to help hold it and lift it higher and higher till we get to the height we need to be at. Almost there. I've got just a tiny bit more, so I'm going to raise that up just a bit. I might have to get the bolt in the other side and then we can swap back over. There we go. On the inside, we're going to be throwing on a flat washer and then our lock nut. I'm going to grab my wrench and my impact again. We're just going to run these down a bit and then we'll come back with our torque wrench and torque these to spec. I'm going to go ahead and use our torque wrench and torque these all as well. Now that we got these all torqued down, it is time to reinstall our breakaway switch. So it looks like this was probably the original spot before the original owner of the trailer moved the pin box. And now our old hole that we did have before is not really going to be working for us because it's blocked by our pin box. But the lower one down here, the original one, is good to go. So that's what I'm going to be using. I'm going to run the self-tapper right back through. We can hook this up while we're waiting for our truck. Push this cable out of the way, that way we're all good to go. We can back our truck in and get hooked up, take this on a little test drive. Super important we make sure we lock our jaws handle here. Make sure that's not going to pop out. Next, we are going to hook up our 7-way and our breakaway switch. Now, I'll typically just put that breakaway switch right onto one of our little loops that we have here in the corner of our bed. And then for the 7-way, we've got our connection back here. Well, that's going to do it for our look at and installation of the MORryde pin box here on our 2021 Grand Design Reflection 5th wheel trailer. My name's Kevin, and if you still have some questions about what's going to be the right suspension upgrade for your trailer, please feel free to reach out to us via our Ask the Experts link, a comment on this video, or a phone call to our customer service department. We'd be happy to help you out on your journey.